Travis Wayne Goodsell. Growing up in Southern California, my peers had educated me on Lucifer in regards to Satan and the devil, and how scary and evil he is, and other times how cool and awesome. I had a born-again Christian in high school art class who was always drawing dragons, and awesome drawer, great dragons. I would have loved to have had a book of his art, but talking to him about it, he would openly acknowledge he's drawing Lucifer, because Revelation says he's a dragon. And he literally believed the literal word from Revelation that Lucifer is a dragon. And, okay. But interesting, he was born-again Christian, and yet was obsessed with drawing dragons, as he understood them as Lucifer. That was the sign for him of acknowledging the existence of Lucifer and all things Lucifer. He understood that sign. And so I'm sure as he saw movies and other passages involving, or stories involving dragons, Lucifer would always be on the forefront of his mind because of that. Likewise is this hand sign of Lucifer, as KISS, for example, was well understood by all the peers as they educated me that it stood for Knights in Satan's Service. Heaven's on fire. Put the X back to, or X and sex, but can't remember the title. And other fun songs. And so again, as gangs were well known in Southern California, and the gang signs, whatever they were, but we all knew they had their secret signs to know a brother from another brother. If you're not familiar with Mormon scripture, there's a passage in the Book of Mormon, in the Book of Helaman, chapter 6, right around verse 22, talks all about it. And so again, all my peers knew the gang sign for Lucifer, and when you raised it, they all knew. In the beginning, good always overpowered the evils of all mankind, but in time our nations grew weak, as our cities fell to slums. Many are in the dust of hell of the blackest of hates, for he, the evil seer, awaits you. Now, many lifetimes later, they're destroyed, beaten down, only the corpses of levels, ashes of dreams, and blood-stained streets. It has been written that those who hold the youth hold the future. So come now, children of the beast, be strong, and shout at the devil. How well did I do? That wasn't KISS, that was Molly Crew. And so yes, the knowledge of Lucifer spread wide in my schooling, and in my social context with the radio. And oh, you don't know what a radio is, millennials? But everybody knows the signs. They know what it means. And you can't escape not knowing. Everybody knows. So when Anton LaVey decided to create the Satanic Bible, what does he do? Well, he has to put the sign of Lucifer right on the front cover, because that's the sign whereby all men knows Lucifer and Lucifer's doctrines. And so everybody knows the sign of Lucifer. If they were born and raised in a God-fearing home and they decide to turn to Lucifer, they're most likely very well aware of Isaiah chapter 7, verse 14. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? It came from the Latin Vulgate, right before 400 AD, and it means light bearer. But in the context, people assume it refers to Venus. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Venus, son of the morning? And the reason why is Venus, as you can watch, as I've been telling you about, is struggling to try to rise up to become the sun at noonday. It's losing right now to Sirius, which in Egyptian is the Egyptian god Horus, who is to battle Set, which I told you Satan means King Set in Paleo-Hebrew, and is to take over or restore the kingdom of his father Osiris, who had been murdered by his brother Satan, Set, King Set. And so there really isn't any confusion except for those who choose to deny. Those who deny have to create a whole new definition, a whole new interpretation, a whole new meaning of signs and symbols that are known and understood in society. And many of them become successful in brainwashing people to changing definitions, changing meanings and interpretations of things. And so, for example, how many of you know the original word meaning happy? Yeah, it was gay at one time. There's a song, a Christmas song, I think. I can't remember which Christmas song it is, but it talks about being gay in regards to happiness during the festive season. And so over time, abusers and bullies target a group of people to create a new definition as a result. These are deniers. This is what deniers do. And so, growing up in the Church of Jesus Christ, the Latter-day Saints, I knew all about Lucifer. I knew about his signs. I knew about his tactics. The church even helped out by the scriptures teaching me about the doctrinal principles of Lucifer from Moses chapter 4, verse 1 through 4, that he intends to take away agency so that everybody can be saved in the highest degree of the celestial kingdom, so that therefore there wouldn't be a need for the other lower kingdoms. And the concept of taking away people's life, liberty, and property in regards to agency is a very clear concept. It really is. You don't do it. Otherwise it's a crime. And yet, nonetheless, I have witnessed over the course of my years how regular societies behave, and then moving to Utah and witnessing how Mormons of whom are supposed to have been from my same religion, who are supposed to know all about Lucifer and the signs and the doctrines and the principles, and yet they're just like my parents, specifically my mother, because Dad was always out working. And it horrified me, because I rebelled against my mother because she was trying to take away my agency. Not because I'm a kid. Oh no, don't touch the stove, Travis. Oh, you're trying to take away my agency. Not that kind of situation. But the concept of life, liberty, and property just is justified with accusations, with the categorization of people, label making, box making, categorization boxes, etc. Is just prevalent throughout Utah here. And it literally is scary. It was bad enough that I had to grow up in it with my parents, but to witness it on a social-wide scale is just horrifying. The ideology of hate and of evil being practiced by those of my own religion is just terrifying. And so with last night's presidential whatever it was, as Trump did a call to arms for the Proud Boys, I'm surprised he didn't do it for the MS-13, is it? They're more organized, or became organized because of Trump. But the Proud Boys, I think, if I understand correctly, they're not an actual organization. They're just an ideology that uses social media to communicate with each other. Similar to DesNat, the Mormon version. Because Utah has their white supremacist groups as well. This is what I'm concerned about, because the white supremacist groups in Utah also would have heard the call to arms from Trump. And this is a very dangerous situation. As people who are in such groups, in such ideology streaming, social media streaming, they don't necessarily outwardly proclaim who they are. Curtis Allgaier, if you know him, the infamous white supremacist, racist, white supremacist, he's one of the groups. White supremacy is the umbrella and everybody else is under it. So that's my understanding of that. But the guy who killed the cop while on a hospital visit and then got caught at Arby's. We have those groups here in Utah. DesNat is such an ideology group. But when they got caught and called on it, you know, the leader of the Twitter feed or whatever came out with a denial, saying, oh, no, we just want people to follow the living prophet. Oh, right, by bullying and threats and taking away agency? Exactly. It's the ideology behind it. We all know it, even though there are those who only want to listen to faith-promoting experiences. And so they hear the outward speech of, oh, we just want people to follow the Spirit, and Mormons who don't want to hear anything but faith-promoting only hear faith promoting from such terrorist groups and ideologies. They don't know the secret coding that is being used when somebody says, oh, I want people to follow the living prophet. Oh, I want all people to be exalted in the highest degree of the celestial kingdom. It all sounds good, but then once you figure out how it's going to be implemented, the ideologies behind it, the principles and the precepts, the doctrines, then all of a sudden, uh-oh, wolf in sheep's clothing. I got duped. That's why that is in there. The latter days are going to have false prophets, false Christs, false teachers who proclaim outwardly love, peace, Jesus, but inwardly their ideologies, their doctrines, their principles, precepts, teachings are Lucifer's. And those of us in the know to know. We know what to look for. As I was educated as a little kid by my peers. And so when I finally found out about the inverted pentagram on the keystone of the Ark of the Door of the Salt Lake Temple, which was already after I had been studying church history and learned a lot. And so this was like, uh-oh, this confirms my worst fear. As I was going through trying to figure out and confirm if Brigham Young did actually give the order to murder Joseph Smith. And so needing something to rely on, because sometimes maybe people are manipulating pictures or videos. Well, I knew something I can count on and trust. On the 1st of October, so tomorrow's the anniversary, as our marriage is now over, second marriage is now over also. We got sealed in the Salt Lake Temple. And room number 13, by the way, I now think in retrospect that the leaders of the church were purposely behind that. Because of some other Friday the 13th and number 13s that have been involved in my life. With the first wife even. We got married on Friday the 13th. And in March, which was when the first death threat that I got from a co-conspirator, my property manager, who was listed as a co-conspirator in the first lawsuit against the church earlier this year. So that was an anniversary gift. But yeah, I was able to reference the pictures. Our Relief Society president, along with Karen's best friend, was also there to take pictures, and so I went back to our wedding photos. And sure enough, Donna made sure to include the full door with the Keystone Ark. And so, yeah, nobody can tell me that it's fake news, that it's not there. Nobody can tell me that it's some other meaning, some other ideology, some other doctrine, some other precept, some other principle, some other interpretation. There is only one. And it's been around for centuries. All know it. And there it is on the Salt Lake Temple. carved in stone. And so it's horrifying to witness Mormon deniers who want to find any source that will tell them the lie. That it's a symbol of Jesus or a symbol of revelation coming from heaven. No, it's the falling star. It's Lucifer. It's his doctrines. It's his ideologies. It's his plan of happiness to take away our agency. There is nothing else to it. It's not complicated. Anyone in the world who knows Lucifer's symbol, like I did as a child, when they go to Temple Square and they see either the Eagle Gate, which also has it, or just happens to see the keystone of the Ark of the Door of the Salt Lake Temple, will know. And I think they've walled it up, haven't they? So that you can't see it unless you're inside. Let me check Google Maps, see if they'll let me see if that's the case. But I do recall that being the case. Because I do recall the photograph that I took at Temple Square back in 2014. It has that wall. I could have just gone into that, I guess, couldn't I? Temple Square. Dun, 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 dun. There's the line straight down. Trying to zoom in so that I can then turn. Come on. Are you not going to let me because you didn't have your Google guys doing it? There is a wall, but I can't tell if it's... Oh, you can almost see it from the downward angle. You can see where the ark is, the keystone. But now let me check my photo that I took. Theme of that movie: don't do drugs during a tornado. Okay, that could be why also. I took it when the fountain, because I knew when the fountain would go off, and so maybe I won't be able to know. No? You have to be far back, but yeah, I do see a wall. though it may be the bushes and trees along the sides leading up to it. But, yeah. So, but yeah, we all know it's there. And it's heartbreaking. I mean, if I hadn't done the church history research first to try to figure out why would he do that? Was it just to take over the organization? Why would he have Joseph Smith murdered? What's going on? What's the causal situation here? And I didn't find about the lecture that Joseph Smith gave to the 12 in 1839, chastising them for getting rid of Thomas B. Marsh, or the 1840 one where he talked about the whole 12 as also being Judas. So the 1839 one, Brigham, trying to exalt himself as he became the president of that quorum of ministers, not leaders. But yeah, I'd already figured out the Scottish Rites Illuminati connection, and so yeah, when I found out about the signs of the Illuminati, which is Lucifer, I was already prepared mentally and emotionally. But it still is heartbreaking to be born and raised in the wrong church that claimed to be the right church. And I was like, oh wow, I was born in the true church. I'm privileged. I'm awesome in Special Olympics. And it's just, yeah, it's heartbreaking. But those who follow Lucifer, who embrace the teachings of Anton LaVey or whatever, the Book of the Nine Gates, you know, they all know the sign, and if they were to see those signs on State Street going up to the Capitol or on the temple itself, they would know, oh, wow, these guys are one of us. And so when they hear the conference talks, sure enough, they would hear the trigger words, especially from Oaks, who loves taking away our agency. And so you can look for it in conference, which I'm kind of wondering if maybe the fall of Babylon will be that day. Fall of the great and abominable church, the horror of all the earth will be that day, as the signs do indicate, as I did the video this morning for Sukkot. And so, but if conference does proceed, you can listen to those trigger words, because to the ignorant, they sound all faith-promoting. Love, peace, Jesus, yay. Book of Mormon, Joseph Smith, yay. But then you hear the underlining ideology of what they're actually asking of us. That's what I've been trying to warn you in all these videos, is when they talk about go to the temple, well, the underlining message is, well, you have to have a bishop's interview and then a stake president's interview. And in those interviews, number 10 is, do you pay a full tithe? They extort money from you in order to perform the rituals. That's not Jesus' way. Even Isaiah says, come buy wine and milk without money and without price. It's not referring to actual wine and milk. It's talking about exaltation, the rituals of the temple. So when Jesus sees the money changers at the temple taking advantage of people, yeah, get the whip. So, and what makes it worse for the church is they're not an ideology. They're an organization. The government could easily step in and shut them all down. And I wondered why the government hasn't. After my case took 2 weeks to be approved. And then Attorney General Barr goes and says that trigger word from my lawsuit, sedition. And so why isn't Attorney General Barr coming after the church? Maybe he's waiting for the October surprise. But remember the misinformation group, QAnon? What is the 3 general areas that they're all freaked out about? Aliens, pedophiliacs, Satan worshippers. Where do Mormons believe we came from? If you can hide a kolob in the twinkling of an eye, and then continue onward. Anybody familiar with the Boy Scouts? Anybody familiar with Brigham Young University and the number of rapes and the thousands of rape kits that had to be caught up on that they just began in 2017? And then the sign that all men know. QAnon is misinforming people when all they need to do is point it in the direction of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And the church has nowhere to hide. They have no justification. There are lawsuits confirming And so what do you think Trump wants to do at all costs? He wants to win the election, to maintain control and power, to protect himself from legal jeopardy, financial jeopardy, etc., etc. And so what would be the one thing that would shock America if he were able to accomplish? That he's been talking about fighting his whole presidency and in his candidacy before the deep state. If Trump came out and said, "I conquered the deep state. We've caught them, we've exposed them, they're on trial, they're locked up." Do you know what a shock that would be to all the world? What an inside straight that Trump would have pulled. That's why I'm warning you. Something's coming to town. Getting a Ghostbusters flashback. Whoa, somebody's coming. Bill Murray, classic.